We need to actually get them housed and just not hide them. We can't go back to the failed policies of the past that we know don't work, like criminalizing homelessness and putting people in jail and giving them fines, tickets for being homeless. We also have to do better than we're doing right now with respect to the encampments that people see. We can and we will, and the council is taking action, and the community is coming forward with a new way to approach this challenge. Last night's fires were horrible, and we're fortunate that no one died. But it should renew and redouble our efforts to get people out of tents everywhere and to get them into homes. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harper Madison, can you continue with us?
Absolutely, I'd like that. Thank you very much. I'll just say what I think we're all thinking. I'm tired of talking about this. I'm tired of talking, and I'm ready for action. But Proposition B won't house anyone. People living in tents in the capital city, that problem will not be solved with tickets in jail. Frankly, you can vote for this measure or don't vote for the measure. It doesn't amount to a hill of beans if we don't make real investments in communities that actually house people. The same voices that express discontent about the visibility of the unhoused, well, they also express discontent about the formerly unhoused being sheltered, housed in their communities, individuals living near them. Where do you want them to go is the question I ask. How do we decide which communities are appropriate to shelter people? I think we need to stop with the hypocrisy. I think we need to stop with the prejudice against people caught up in poverty or mental illness. Let's just make the commitment to removing the artificial barriers that we've created that prevent housing more people who need it right now. Let's invest in housing, invest in people, invest in communities, invest in humanity. Affordability and homelessness go hand in hand. The solution is not tickets and arrests. The solution is housing, housing, housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to hand it over to Chaz Moore with the Austin Justice Coalition.
Thank you so much. And really, I'll be brief. I think just as the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem both have just stated, I think these tragedies that happened this morning are just another reminder that the only way that we keep these people safe, the only way we keep our neighbors that are unhoused safe, is to get them housed. I think the mayor brings up a good point that if we vote on Prop B and we only hide the problem when we put them back in harmful terrain such as the woods and places like that, this is only going to make these type of incidents more likely to happen and way more dangerous. The fact that nobody has died because of these fires is a miracle, but I guarantee you that if these people are pushed back out to the furthest margins of our communities and of our city, I don't think we'll be that lucky. I really hope we take a second to really think about the humanity that we really stripped away from these people, and not we, but the opposition, the people that want us to vote for Prop B. The fact of the matter is that human beings that are unhoused because of so many systemic and institutional problems almost lost their lives. And one of the only ways we can keep them safe is by funding, believing in, coming together, creating some path to permanent housing for these folks. So I really hope that we as a community don't take the fact that nobody was harmed in these fires for granted, And I really hope we take this moment to come together and continue to work towards an actual solution, not just an answer. Prop B is an answer to a problem that we have in the city, but it's not the solution. The solution is housing. And I hope we can continue to work together as this great city that we are, to make the solution a reality. So thank you all for allowing me to be here today. And I look forward to working with, the city and other folks in the community that have been trying to, make this thing a reality for so long. So.
Thank you so much, Chaz. I'd like to pass it on to Max Moscow with the Other Ones Foundation.
Hey there, this is actually Chris Baker. I'm the founder and executive director of the Other Ones Foundation. Max was gonna pitch it for me, but I was able to make it. So thanks, Mayor Adler, Mayor Pro Tem Harper Madison, Chaz, it's great to see you, brother. I guess I'm in agreement with everything I've heard so far. We are the Other Ones Foundation. A lot of our operations do run out of the Esperanza community, which was the site of one of the fires, and we had about 10 people who have lost the place that they were staying. And as you know, we're working as hard as we can to try to find alternative shelter for those folks, and hopefully we will by next week. But the question in the meantime is where do we go? And this is the question that we hear from people who are displaced by whatever means they're displaced by, whether that is by people who are currently camping in places where they're not allowed to be, and certainly if the places that people are allowed to be are restricted even further, then we're going to be getting that question a whole lot more. And of course, the only really humane and dignified answer that we can give to that question is housing. And so we need to make the investments necessary to get our homeless response system access to as much housing stock as possible. We can do it. We've done it before. Our brothers and sisters that are out here living on the streets, many of them are there because of a lot of the systems that we have in place that make it incredibly difficult, not only to pay for, but just simply to access housing. And so we need to make the big investments in public housing, low barrier public housing, and affordable housing. So this is really the only answer that we have. This is, we talk a lot about the solution to houselessness being housing, and the solution to homelessness being community. And so we all have to really do some introspection and realize that these are our brothers and sisters that are living out here on the streets. They're part of our community, and they deserve better than what we're doing for them now. And the good first step to that needs to be a stable indoor place to live with climate control, where they're not going to get rained on or snowed on or frozen out of or heated out of. And so we at the Other Ones Foundation are going to continue to work to that end here on the side of the Esperanza community. And we're going to do whatever it takes to advocate for that to happen at the city level, the county level, the state level, and the national level. So thanks for inviting us to be a part of this conversation.
Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate that. I'd like to pass it to Walter Moreau with Foundation Communities.
Walter with Foundation Communities. Thank you for inviting me. We're a local nonprofit that provides affordable housing. We have 23 communities, north, south, east, and west, about 7,000 residents. And about 1,000 of our residents were formerly homeless. As everybody has said, housing really works. People just need that support. And 20 years ago, we opened our very first supportive housing community for single adults. We bought the old nursing home called Garden Terrace on William Cannon. It was in bad shape, but we've totally renovated it. It's been a great home for over 100 residents over the last 20 years. Nobody knows that it's supportive housing. Then we bought 3 hotels that we converted into really great places to live. And that strategy has really worked. We built Capitol Studios downtown, the first affordable housing in 40 years that serves single adults, musicians, folks that are working and folks that are not able to work, veterans. Bluebonnet Studios on South Lamar, and we just opened Waterloo Terrace, 132 apartments up by the Domain. We've had over 1,300 people apply for those 132 apartments, about 10 applicants for every single apartment. It's really overwhelming. We just broke ground this week on Zilker Studios on South Lamar. We need to do more. The need is great. And we're not alone. I'm so proud of the work that Mobile Loaves and Fishes does, that Caritas, Integral Care, LifeWorks. We all have slightly different models, and that's a good thing. We need all the above. So that's what I wanted to contribute to the conversation, that we have a track record, we have great providers, great examples of supportive housing that has really lifted people up right here in Austin. And we're all trying to figure out how we do more right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. I'd like to pass it to Heidi Sloan. Heidi, are you there?
I am. Thank you so much. I appreciate this gathering of so many people who I know have completely dedicated themselves to leading out on this issue, whose hearts are absolutely here for the right reasons. I just want to take a moment after reading through the news and the reactions this morning to acknowledge that what we're dealing with here is human dignity and human suffering, and to say that those people who are affected by incidents like fires, like freezes, like being moved out of their homes, these folks are not the perpetrators of the problem here. They are people who have been pushed out of a system of care and of justice. And it is our duty as a community to stand up and with for them and to demand real solutions. Placing blame for someone who has been through something so difficult as any of those three examples is the wrong-headed reaction. And we are here to push for better, to continue the long and hard road that we have committed ourselves to push for housing as the only solution. I'm here with Homes Not Handcuffs, an organization, a coalition of grassroots individuals, of Austinites who, just as themselves, have also committed to this long and hard road. I myself have worked alongside folks who have experienced chronic homelessness in Austin for the last 8 years. And I know that when we shame folks who are so directly impacted by the injustices of our economic system, when we push them further and further from justice and from care, we actually are pushing them away from the real solution, which is housing, which is recovery, which is services. And so instead, in this moment today, as well as this season, locally and statewide, we are pushing to say that we need to bring people into the light, that we need to allow the expression of agency, that we need our neighbors to reach out to our neighbors as they have been doing, but we have to make way for that to happen. Austin wants to bring every individual experiencing homelessness home, but we as a community have to say yes to that, and we have to stop putting up boundaries, whether they are legal or they are cultural, between us and our neighbors who are living out right now. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Heidi. And finally, I'd like to pass it to Councilmember Greg Kasar and ask that if you have any questions at all, please drop them in the chat with your name and outlet as well.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone who's spoken so far. I also want to thank our medics and our firefighters who have worked starting, for so long, but just thinking about their work during the winter storm to make sure that people are safe, including so many people experiencing homelessness, and then who worked last night and through today to make sure that our city is safe and to take care of people. The fire at Buford Tower last night was awful. The fire at the governor set up at Camp Esperanza last night was awful. It's also awful that people have to sleep outdoors and sometimes have to start fires to stay warm. That's all unacceptable. The only solution for all of this is for us to do what generations before us have failed to do: house and serve those folks who are homeless. This is our collective responsibility. That's why our city and our county and our private sector have to come together to invest in housing 1,000 unsheltered people in this next year. We must, we can, and we will. There are snake oil salesmen today saying that the solution to all of this is to criminalize the poor. And that won't help. We've seen that that doesn't help. Here's a couple of examples. The press covered quite a bit when the governor said he was going to sweep out all of the people from underpasses. But we know that has not reduced homelessness under our bridges. In fact, the city's current rules already ban camping in parks and on sidewalks like those next to Buford. But that hasn't reduced homelessness. If we want to prevent fires, if we want to prevent frostbite, if we want to reduce harm and death, if we want to reduce homelessness in our city, there's only one real path forward: moving hundreds of people from the streets into housing. As Mayor Pro Tem Harper Madison said, it's housing, housing, and housing with support from our entire community. We must and we will do that together.
Thank you all so much. That concludes the press conference portion of this event, and I'd like to transition into Q&A. Media, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and the best person that we have from our esteemed panel here will be able to answer them as best they can. Our first question is from KVUE. Can someone run through what the city has done so far to house homeless people in Austin? Maybe Mayor Adler, Mayor Pro Tem, or any of our other colleagues who would like to take that question.
The city's doing a lot together with partners to get people off the streets, because we don't want anyone in tents anywhere in our city. We invest in and support with organizations like Foundation Communities and Walter Moreau, who you heard speak. We're working with others like Caritas with the bond programs and the funding that the city brings to bear. Our community has voted to support a $250 million bond election, part of which went to providing housing for people that are unsheltered. We've launched into a hotel strategy and are beginning to acquire hotels following the model that's worked so well for Foundation Communities, so that we can have more of these opportunities in more parts of our city. We're working with job programs. We're working with mental health and behavior providers to provide resources. We're providing more and more opportunities to house people, but I will tell you, everything that we are doing, including taking efforts to reach effective zero in veterans homelessness and to take half of the children on our streets experiencing homelessness off our streets, everything that we're doing is not up to the challenge that we face. This is the time for the community to really put their shoulder to the wheel, to really scale and accelerate the programs that we know work, and to do it at a scale that enables us to meet the challenge. And that's the direction I think that the city council is taking right now. It's the direction that partners in the community are putting their efforts toward. And this is something that, if we're serious about wanting to really meet this challenge, we can do it. I don't know if the Mayor Pro Tem or Councilmember Kasar has things they want to add to that.
One thing I will add is that in the past, our goal was to add 150 new homes for people experiencing homelessness in our city a year. 150. That was never enough. We would struggle to even get to that 150. And we knew that if we got to that 150, it would barely keep us treading water. We can't tread water anymore. We have to drastically reduce homelessness in our community. And this year, we have already blown well past that goal. We are talking about hundreds and hundreds more homes for people experiencing homelessness this year. And then we need to do hundreds and hundreds more than that with new investments, because that's what it's going to take to actually stop treading water and actually reduce homelessness in the community. And we can't accept anything less than that.
Thank you both. We have another question from KXAN. In the past, the Austin Watershed Association and the Austin Public Works have helped clean up after some of these fires. Who does that fall to now? Last reported KXAN had on this was over a year ago. Did that stop? And will these efforts continue after these incidents to kind of clean up some of these areas following the fires?
So I'm unsure exactly what the question is, but the city staff has continued its efforts to try to bring sanitation and to clean up, provide support and facilities for some of these for the encampments that we see, and that activity continues.
Yeah, I think that it's probably good to touch base with the manager's office on that front. Something they might let you know is, our shelter capacity has been severely constrained by COVID, just like so many of the cleanup operations. So we are trying to work really hard on making sure that everything is cleaned, but understanding that the ways that COVID really limits the ability for our staff to do much of their work, so that they are working really hard to make sure it's done and done safely.
Thank you both. We have another question from KXAN, and I'm hoping Walter or maybe Chris can answer this one. Folks often say that with voucher case management, they're unable to meet the requirements of landlords because of their history. Does the city have any control over this? And how is the city working around this obstacle? And I would say with Walter and Chris, how are your organizations working around this obstacle?
I would say that the first and foremost, the biggest challenge we have is just overwhelming demand. So like Waterloo Terrace is a good example. We have 10 applicants for every one apartment. We've reviewed recently last year our criminal criteria and been increasingly more flexible. We especially for single adults, there are different landlords have different criteria, and some are no barrier, some are low barrier. And that has been a feature in city funding, what type of model you're using and what requirements you've got.
I would say that one of the things that the city did to help ensure that people who had been experiencing homelessness were able to get jobs and able to get into apartments was to make sure that they weren't getting tickets or put in jail just for merely being without homes. And that's one of the important things that the city has done, because many more people qualify now for jobs and homes than would otherwise qualify if those policies were in place. And those in the community that call for us to return to those old failed policies are setting up for, once again, this challenge to become even greater. The city also adopted a policy to make sure that landlords would accept vouchers, which are as good as cash, and put money right into landlords' accounts without discrimination as to whether someone was paying their rent with a voucher or with dollars otherwise, because they both work the same. But we were preempted in that by the state stepping in, and it would be good if we could return back to a non-discrimination place with respect to that. But a lot of the supportive services that we have in this city, a lot of the organizations that exist in the city to provide support are professionals, social workers, and others that are detailed in their job to help folks get into homes with challenges that they might be bringing with them.
Chris, from the Other Ones Foundation, can you expand on your experience there?
Yeah, I can confirm that we've seen, and we not once, but many times, this is right. I mean, we have people who have a voucher, who have case management, who have housing navigation, and they're still not able to get into places because of rental history or criminal history. And I think that the issue there is really what it comes down to is just the complete and total hyper commodification of housing. The solution is big on this one, because if we only think of housing as a commodity and we leave these decisions of whether or not people are able to access these housing units, or whether the homelessness response system itself is able to get access to these units, is based solely on the decisions of landlords whose primary objective is to make money, then we're never going to be able to get past that whole part of it. We're going to keep seeing this over and over again. So we need to switch our thinking about it. We need to stop thinking about housing as a commodity and start thinking about it as a human right. And we need to, again, make the investments in public housing. And I use that word intentionally, because affordable housing is something that the city needs, and it's certainly the unaffordability is problematic for a lot of people in the city, but chronic homelessness is not going to be solved by affordable housing. It's just not. It's going to be solved by public housing that is seen as a human right as opposed to a commodity, giving tax incentives and all these things. We have to get over this idea that this is a way for developers and landlords to make money, because it's just not. It's my opinion. So, and until we really get there, you're going to see this again and again. You're going to see people who have vouchers who get turned away from every housing opportunity that pops up for them, because, again, criminal history, and a lot of that criminal history is based solely on the criminalization of homelessness. A lot of that is based on the criminalization of mental health issues such as substance use disorders. And so when you have a person who has been repeatedly arrested for possessing less than a gram of a controlled substance, and because of that substance use disorder, that person is denied housing, or because they have some hiccup in their rental history. And what winds up happening with these rental history things is that the homeless response system is wasting money, paying all this back rent and paying these landlords off to get these things off their history, so that it becomes possible for them to move into a new, for them to get access to a new housing unit. And so this is a big paradigm shift to start thinking of this as not something that we're going to expect people to make a lot of money off of, but it's just, in my opinion, and I am not going to speak to whether the city has any control over this or how they're trying to work around it. I know that was part of the question, and I'm obviously not going to answer that, but I'm just here to say that, we do see this again and again, and that's sort of what my opinion is on the solution to that.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'd like to offer it up to Mayor Adler to see if he has any closing comments for us. If not, we can maybe pass it to somebody else, but we have time for about one more question before we'll wrap up our press conference.
don't know if you have a question. I would just urge the media to pay close attention to the action the council should be taking. I believe in the report that we should be getting the first week in April with respect to the HEAL resolution, which I think is going to be taking a look at some of the steps that the council may take. And I'm also really anxious to see what comes out of the summit, which is a lot of community partners that are seem to be coming together here in the first week or two of April to make a proposal to the community at large as to a new direction that really takes all the work has been done thus far and advances it to the next level. And I would urge the media to pay real close attention to the conversation that was initiated about the spending of the American Rescue Plan dollars and the stated intent of the City Council to use this funding, hopefully to join with Travis County, but focusing those dollars at scale on our highest priorities in order to really meet those challenges. I think that is a much better way for this community to move forward, to actually meet the challenge of homelessness than doing things like voting for Proposition B, which would return us to failed policies of the past that we know don't work.
Thank you so much, Mayor Adler, and to all of our speakers for joining us today. If anyone in the media would like a copy of this recording, please send me an email or give me a call, and I'm happy to provide that. Thank you so much for joining today, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.